This supervision is much more intrusive, it's much more intensive.
1 in every 3 Christians in Asia are suffering from a high level of persecution. That's according to a new report by the UK-based Christian advocacy group Open Doors. Its 2019 watch list report ranks these 4 Asian countries among the top 10 where persecutions of Christians is most extreme. North Korea tops the list for the 18th straight year. The report says there have been increased efforts by the government to eliminate all channels for spreading Christianity. The report also highlights the continued persecution of Christian minorities in Afghanistan and Pakistan, which are predominantly Muslim. And for the first time, India has broken into the top 10 of the watch list due to a rising numbers of attacks on Christians and churches by Hindu extremists. China is also on the list, ranked at number 27 this year, a dramatic rise from its position at number 43 in 2018. The report says, according to some church leaders, persecution in China is at the worst level since the Cultural Revolution in the 1960s and 70s. Other Asian countries on the list include Myanmar, Vietnam, Bhutan, Indonesia, and Malaysia. To talk about this, I'm joined from the United Kingdom by Ron Boyd-Macmillan. He's the Director of Research at Open Doors International. Now, one particularly interesting finding was that there has been a significant increase in the persecutions of Christians in China. What examples can you give about that from the past year?
Perhaps one of the most significant shifts is that responsibility for the supervision of religious activity has shifted to the party organisation called the United Front Work Department and away from a government department that was called the Religious Affairs Bureau. That's been done away with. Now this supervision is much more intrusive, it's much more intensive, and it's a way of making sure that all religion, not just Christianity, has to serve the ideological goals of the state. And under President Xi Jinping, since 2012, churches are finding that they get visited a lot more, and there are requirements, to basically tell the government everything you are doing. And this is a bit new because things were liberalizing quite significantly over the last 10, maybe even 15 years. But this is a complete reversal.
Ron, I want to see if you can tell me a little bit more about the situation in Indonesia.
There are religious extremists, Islamic extremists, and so you have churches that are targeted, and there was a horrible incident where a family went and blew themselves up in a church in Surabaya and killed Christians. And of course the governor of Jakarta was a Christian, and he was smeared really by Islamic extremists a couple of years ago, and has been serving a 2-year jail sentence because of that. So it's rather unfortunate. Indonesia used to have a reputation of being very tolerant of all the different religious traditions. This is shifting.
It's no surprise that North Korea has been top of the list for nearly 2 decades. How has that situation worsened despite Pyongyang's efforts to engage with the West?
Internally, there isn't really much change. Many of us wonder really why there's any mileage for Kim Jong-un in talking to Donald Trump, but maybe it's just a survival mechanism. But inside the country, it's just as hard to be a Christian as ever before. It's not tolerated, it's not allowed, and if you are discovered to be a Christian, it usually means jail, and then your children will also be jailed as well.
Is there any solution to this? I mean, in terms of stopping this kind of persecution across Asia and other parts of the world?
You can pressure the governments. You can pray. Very often what they do is when disaster strikes, for example, in Anhui province, there were floods this year, the churches are the first to help and assist. And that impresses the government and often changes their attitude toward the church, where they see that the church can really be an ally in dealing with the challenges of society rather than a rival.
Great insight as always, Ron. Thank you so much for joining us today on SCMP.
Thank you for taking an interest. Bye-bye.